President Trump just unveiled what's now being called the toughest immigration crackdown in American history.
This is exactly what the base wants, and it also speaks to the issue of law and order.
Vice President Mike Pence has just left the Indianapolis Colts game after football players took a knee during the national anthem.
The vice president portraying his decision to walk out as a gesture of patriotic principle.
We are hearing in harrowing detail the tense 12 minutes Las Vegas cops tried to breach the room of Stephen Paddock.
We were tripping over guns, tripping over long guns inside. There were so many.
Could there have been any law passed that would have stopped him?
No.
Right now there are reports of people hiding inside of their wineries in Northern California.
It's a pretty brutal situation. There's no other way of explaining it. 5 major fires burning up there right now.
Antifa planning to protest Columbus Day today by vandalizing statues around the country.
It's crazy, and we need to stand up for American culture, American society, and American history.
October 9th. You know what Brian, you know what today is, though? It's Columbus Day.
Of course.
Often,
my people are celebrating.
Well, not necessarily. I was just reading something today that said that there are some historians who think that Columbus was actually Spanish.
No, I don't buy that at all.
Obviously.
I read 4 Voyages, and totally Italian. Couldn't be more Italian.
Well, then why did he work for the Spanish crown? Why was he buried in Spain?
He could not get money from Italy, which wasn't Italy back then, so he went over and said, what royal family would give me some loot in order to go discover a land that I don't really know exists?
Well, there you go. What we do know is it is a federal holiday, and we thank you so much for joining us here on Fox.
That's right. A lot of people are still in school, though, today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it all depends on the locality.
Right, especially because at one college, which I know pretty well, they decided to make this National Indigenous People Day.
Yeah, they did.
Right.
They did. They don't want to call it Columbus Day anymore.
Fantastic.
And you have 2 days to get a present for my dad. His birthday's the 11th.
So 2 more days.
2 more days.
Doesn't he? He always wants cash every year.
Well,
right?
all right. We can handle that.
Well, anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. And yesterday, the White House sent to Congress the opening bid on the DREAMER Act. Remember, the president made it very clear. All right, I'm going to give Congress 6 months to figure out how to make them legal. Well, yesterday we found out what the White House wants, and you know what? It is very clear. The White House wants the wall, wants it bad, and one of the priorities is to build the wall completely, not just a little part, the whole thing.
Yeah, some other proposals are to hire 10,000 ICE officers and 600 prosecutors, mandatory E-Verify, and that means they're able to confirm that you're able to work here in the United States. They compare your 9 to, DHS and Social Security and the State Department.
So this is their major concern. Let Congress debate DACA and work it out. But before they do anything, you have to have border security. That is why I talked to a White House official last night. They said they thoroughly believe that one of the reasons they got elected was to enforce the border and crack down on illegal immigration in a humane way. So instead of dealing with politicians, they dealt with law enforcement. They went down and talked to Border Patrol. They talked to ICE. They talked to the FBI. All the law enforcement has everything to do with what could make the situation better. In the end, they believe that they enforce the border and overturn this 2008 rule that says anyone from Central America can basically stay here, and then you go through the court system, you get those desk appearances, you never come back. So along with all this, they are bolstering the number of judges by 370. They are proposing bolstering the number of lawyers by about over 1,000 in order to get this handled of the kids coming across the border. Remember, when DACA was announced as an executive order, that's when those kids came streaming across.
Sure.
And they want to put a stop to that. Not to be humane. You got to ask yourself, are you for American kids or the world's kids?
The
we have a big part, but we can't have everybody.
The president says without reform, Brian, the American worker and the taxpayer is unfairly burdened.
Sure. And so what the White House revealed yesterday was a 70-point plan. Donald Trump is a negotiator. He's throwing everything out there. All right, these are my 70 needs. You want the DACA kids, the DREAMER kids. These are the 70 things I want. Are they going to wind up with all 70? Obviously not. But this is the opening bid in what the president wants. Clearly, it is Dreamers for security.
It's all about security, and it is all about making sure that taxpayers are not left with the burden of paying for people who are here illegally.
2 examples. 2006, we put money aside, Democrats and Republicans, to build a wall defense. It never got spent. It never got used. It's not done. Ronald Reagan said, hey, I'll give you amnesty, just enforce the border. We had 3 million illegals back then. It never got done. So now they want to make sure it's done before anything else is done.
Right. So yesterday, NFL, right? The Colts are playing the 49ers, and our vice president goes back to his home state, and he goes to see his Colts play.
Yeah.
And
honor Peyton Manning.
That's right. So national anthem. A lot of the 49ers decided they were going to take a knee, and they didn't stand. So the vice president decides to leave.
He did. There you can see the vice president standing for the pledge. And then shortly after, there he goes. That's either coming or going. Can't really tell by the angle. He tweeted this. I left today's Colts game because President of the United States, and I will not dignify any event that disrespects our soldiers, our flag, or our national anthem. And then the president himself tweeted out, I asked Vice President Pence to leave the stadium if any players kneeled, disrespecting our country. I am proud of him and Second Lady Karen.
Well, by the way, Eric Reed of the San Francisco 49ers, who was the first, I believe, to kneel next to Kaepernick, says this. With the information I have, the last time he had been to a Colts game was 3 years ago, so this looks like a PR stunt. The problem with Eric Reed's philosophy and theory is that you're only going to retire Peyton Manning's uniform once. He means more to Indianapolis than any single athlete or person, including the governor and former congressman. So he brought them championships, he brought them credibility, and he brought them
great
class.
Family, right?
That was so you don't miss that.
Adam Schiff was talking about on Twitter as well. This was a big PR stunt. He tweeted, after all the scandals involving unnecessarily expensive travel by cabinet secretaries, how much taxpayer money was wasted on this stunt? What he's referring to is the fact that the vice president flew from Las Vegas directly to Indianapolis. But the problem with that argument by Democrats is this particular event, going to the game in Indianapolis, was on the vice president's schedule for weeks. They decided to go at the last minute to the unity rally. So it was very clear when Vice President Pence met with the president. He goes, you know, I'm going to go to the game. And the president, and he said, look, if there are a number of players who don't stand, get out. How great. There were 20 members of the 49ers who did not stand. And so the vice president said, you know what? Over and out. Got to go.
23 of the 49ers didn't stand.
Congratulations to Jerry Jones and to Stephen Ross.
Yes.
Jerry Jones says basically if you kneel, you're benched. You're not playing. Or if you don't stand. And number two is Stephen Ross of the Miami Dolphins says, I've changed my mind since the president has outlined this as something about patriotism more than what he thought it was prior. He wants his Dolphins to stand. Every Dolphin stood.
Let us know what you think about it. We're going to be talking about it for the next 3 hours, so we want to include some of your comments.
And other stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
What else?
let's talk a little bit about the brave Las Vegas officers. They sat down with 60 Minutes last night, and it was really telling. They were talking in great detail about the 12 minutes, very tense, harrowing 12 minutes in trying to get into the room of the shooter out in Las Vegas. When they got to the door, because earlier that security guard, Jesus Campos, was shot at, the door looked like Swiss cheese. But then when they got inside, it was just unreal.
And the guy was dead.
So many guns, so many magazines, stacks and stacks of magazines everywhere, just in suitcases, all neatly stacked against pillars that were in the room, all stacked up, rifles placed all throughout.
I could smell the gunpowder that had went off in the room. So we were tripping over guns, tripping over long guns inside. There were so many.
I did notice a note on the nightstand near his shooting platform. I could see on it he had written the distance, the elevation he was on, the drop of what his bullet was going to be for the crowd. So he had that written down and figured out, so he would know where to shoot to hit his targets from there.
That is so. They say he's a math guy. You know, he knew how to play those slot machines and figure out things, and he had all the numbers written down of how far he had to shoot, where people were going to be standing as far as distance concerned. It's just very eerie.
So this weekend, the Sunday shows were dominated by talk of gun control again, and everybody wants to solve the problem. But the problem is there's no clear indication how to stop this guy because we know so little. And even Senator Dianne Feinstein found herself contradicting herself. For example.
Could there have been any law passed that would have stopped him?
No, he passed background checks registering for handguns and other weapons on multiple occasions.
So what she is doing is she's pushing the abolition of these bump stocks, and she said yesterday that there is Republican interest. There's Republican interest in having hearings. Right now she has 38 co-sponsors. They're all Democrats. The NRA says they would like the ATF to regulate. They would not prefer at this point more gun laws.
There's definitely some bridging there. There's going to be very little resistance, I think, from the NRA and from Republicans about getting rid of this. I think in the long run, that's the problem. We're still reacting to it, but people want a bigger conversation, and as Nancy Pelosi mistakenly skidded into, she hopes it's a slippery slope. She hopes that this leads to other things that go wrong, where there's be additional gun control.
All right. Well, let us know what you think about that as well. And we're going to hand it over to Headlines. Congratulations on the new show. We watched.
Thank you.
Did a great job.
Thank you very much. This morning, Fox and Friends first started 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., so it's awesome.
Yeah, and you took us back home to your first job.
I did.
Maybe we can put that on our website so folks at home can see it.
I worked at a grocery store. I was a cashier. All right, though, we do have some serious news to get to this morning, guys. So let's begin with this breaking news. And this Fox News alert, raging wildfires forcing mass evacuations in California's wine country. It's so bad, the Napa County Sheriff issuing this warning to his crew, saying, quote, "We're in survival mode. Don't take any chances." Windy and dry conditions are fueling the flames with wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour in some areas. One of the most powerful men in Hollywood, movie mogul Harvey Weinstein, fired from his own company over accusations he sexually harassed women for decades. This morning, there are even reports the company he co-founded with his brother, the Weinstein Company, will change its name. Board members reportedly saying the name is just too tainted now. A disturbing find at O'Hare Airport. Police arresting a man with a pressure cooker, an AR-15, and a handgun in his car. Police pulled over Santos Zamore for speeding outside of the airport. That's when they found the cooker and the guns. Zamore's family says the whole thing is a misunderstanding. That's a look at your headlines on this Monday. I'll send it back to you guys, and I'll see you in a little bit.
Oh, man, all those buzzwords, pressure cooker, long guns.
Yep.
All right, 12 minutes now after the hour, straight ahead. She went to prison for leaking classified information, and this morning, Chelsea Manning has a new excuse. You're going to want to hear that.
And President Trump is about to take a hatchet to Obamacare. Professor Brian Brenberg is here to break it all down. What it means for you, you'll find out as we roll in live from New York City on Columbus Day.
Professor, hello.
We're going to block Rand back to the stage. But if we made a temporary deal, I think it would be a great thing for people. But it's really up to them. Obamacare is a disaster. The numbers are out. It's exploding like I said it would.
It's exploding like I said it would. While the president is working on a temporary deal with Democrats on health care, he's also taking a hatchet to Obamacare on his own with a new executive order out this week. Here to weigh in is the chair of the program in business and finance at the King's College in New York City, Professor Brian Brenberg. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning. Good to see you.
All right, so we heard that the president apparently called Chuck Schumer over the weekend at some point and said, "Hey, Chuck, I'd like to do something about repeal and replace." And he goes, "Are you kidding? We're done with that." Click.
Yeah, I think that was the obvious answer, but he wanted to put him on notice. We're going to do something here. This is your shot to get in on it.
All right. So what are we looking at so far? Because there are a couple of things that they're talking about. For instance, it would expand options for individuals and small business employees and direct federal agencies to explore ways to loosen regulations. What does that mean?
So small businesses under his plan will be able to band together and buy insurance together, which brings down the rates that they pay, and it will allow them to avoid some of these essential health benefits that that have driven up costs. So these businesses that for years have been saying our costs are too high, requirements are too high, they're getting an option here to band together and to bring down those costs. And I think you're going to see them move to these kind of plans in droves because it's going to help them out.
I'm sure there's some people waking up right now, Professor, and they're going, wait a minute, the president could do that all along? Why do you waste all that time with Congress?
Well, I think, look, Congress has the opportunity to create a more comprehensive solution, okay? It takes care of, all the pieces of a health care plan. The president is saying, I'm going to move forward where I can. There are bits and pieces that I can help with. Small businesses and these association plans are one thing, temporary insurance plans are another. So I think the president is just saying, look, we still need a comprehensive legislative solution, but in the meantime, because you guys can't get your act together, I'm going to move ahead and do what I need to do, and you can come along or you can pay the price for not helping out.
So ultimately, when you look at those two describers of what they're thinking about doing, ultimately for the folks watching right now, how would that mean lower premiums for them?
You're going to have the option to buy plans that have fewer kinds of coverages and that have lower prices for those fewer kinds of coverages. And if that suits you, if that makes sense for you, you can buy that. Right now, you don't have that option. You have to buy what the government says you have to buy. You're not going to have to do that under this plan. That'll bring your prices down.
Because right now, under Obamacare and what we have, you've got to have these essential services, and they're very expensive.
And you just might not need maternity care. You might not want to buy mental health coverage. And so right now you have to buy that. That's subsidizing other people. The president is saying, look, if you don't need it, don't buy it. We want you to buy insurance that meets your needs. It's kind of common sense. Buy the thing that you need. And I think that's why Obamacare proponents are so concerned, because they know people are going to like that option.
That's right. And the president's got a pen, just like President Obama. He talks about the pen. He's got a phone. This president's got a pen and a Twitter account, which, and it sounds like he's probably going to sign it, this week?
Yeah, it looks like he's going to do it on Thursday. He's going to move ahead. There'll probably be legal challenges. There are going to be people who are going to speak up against this. It takes some time to implement these things. It's not clear if it'll come into effect in time for 2018, but at some point down the road, it'll create options that hopefully can bring down prices for some consumers who have been just struggling under double-digit price increases for a couple of years now.
All right. Professor, thank you very much. Back to class. All right, coming up on this Monday, disgraced Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl expected to plead guilty to desertion, but what happened to the 5 Taliban prisoners we traded to get him back? And the video is insane. A man hanging on to the hood of a moving school bus. As you can imagine, the kids inside absolutely terrified. The story behind this viral video coming up on this Columbus Day.
Time for some quick headlines right now. ISIS fighters are surrendering in masses. According to the New York Times, more than 1,000 terrorists have given up over the last week, voluntarily reporting to an interrogation center in Iraq. It comes following ISIS's defeat in the city of Hawija, considered to be the terrorists' final urban stronghold in Iraq. And Iran is threatening American military bases, an Iranian official sending a warning to Washington. If the Trump administration passes new sanctions, we will need to move our bases out of the range of their missiles. The comments come as President Trump prepares to decide whether or not to keep the nuclear deal. Okay, down to you, Brian.
Thank you. Bo Bergdahl is set to plead guilty and maybe going to jail. But whatever happened to the Taliban 5 he was swapped for? He was some inside former CIA-trained senior intelligence operative for the U.S. Army, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer. Colonel, you've been all over this. Now we have him admitting what we knew. What does it mean for the 5 that were released without congressional approval?
Well, this makes a bad deal look way worse, if that's possible. Look, these guys were the worst of the worst. At least 3 of them should have been turned over, not to Qatar, but to essentially the criminal court, the World Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. I mean, these folks have slaughtered their own Afghans and own Muslim faithful. So that, on top of the fact that the actual event, the trade, was illegal, Congressman Thornberry's committee, the House Armed Services Committee, determined 2 years ago that the whole deal was, in fact, breaking the law. So not only did we see President Obama breaking law for purposes, in my judgment, Brian, of trying to clear out Guantanamo, these guys now have been caught at least once. Catherine Herridge reported on this, attempting to return to the battlefield by essentially contacting the Taliban in Afghanistan. And they are indeed doing everything they can to return to the front lines of the war. So everything that happened here was very bad.
Colonel, The president, the former president, wanted to empty Gitmo. This was convenient. I get out Bo Bergdahl. I'll look like a hero on that Saturday afternoon, and I'll be able to dump 5 people back out in out of that prison I vowed to close. I was looking back at it. At least one in 2015 was said to go back to battle. But these guys are commanders. They don't necessarily carry the guns, but they're worse. They strategize. They know how to take down the existing government.
Well, not only that, one of the guys, at least I've read, with I think credibility in the report, is he wants to go work for ISIS. You know, he wants to go work for the stronger team. And I think while ISIS is on the run, these guys would love to get back in there, and as you point out, bring life back into it. These are the commanders. Now, Brian, let me point out something to the audience, and we've talked about this several times. President Obama had other and better options. Matter of fact, if you read the House Armed Services report, it's acknowledged that I had a certain role in some of the activities behind the scenes on this issue. So the President Obama, to your point, chose to not take the best option, which was to do something to get Bergdahl back without having to give up these 5 commanders, these generals. It was not only a horrible trade. You're talking about trading essentially, 5 generals for 1 traitor.
Right. I don't know how many late-night comics were crying over this, were they moved by it, when these 5 guys went back to battle, that probably people lost their lives in order to capture them. But remember when Susan Rice not only didn't acknowledge that these were 5 bad guys, they thought Bo Bergdahl was a great guy. Remember 2014?
Right. Well, let's go back to that moment.
In fact, let's listen. Yeah, let's listen.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions about how he originally was captured and whether or not he had deserted, had left his post. Will he be disciplined, or has already paid the price?
Certainly, anybody who's been held in those conditions in captivity for 5 years has paid an extraordinary price. But that is really not the point. The point is that he's back. He's going to be safely reunited with his family. He served the United States with honor and distinction.
Not true. Not true.
Not true. No, it's look, he should be put in front of a firing squad if you go back to World War II, and someone who had done something like that during World War II would have been summarily tried on a battlefield and shot. Now, to that point, Brian, remember, during the time that they were searching for him right after he departed his post, at least 7 to 10 individuals, according to my count from people I've talked to on the ground there, at least 7 Americans died and 3 British died in the search for Bergdahl right after he left. So again, this is not only a terrible deal, we're talking about people who have put their lives on the line and died looking for this guy.
I remember in Matt Bissonnet's book, he talked about while he was still under lock and key that they had to go out and search for him, and his commanding officer got shot in doing it. Thankfully, he survived. Colonel, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Brian.
All right, 2 minutes before the bottom of the hour. Remember this promise President Trump made to the coal country?
We're going to put the miners back to work. We're going to put the miners back to work. It's going to happen fast. And you're going to be back to better than ever before.
Well, today he's about to deliver big time, and liberals may not like it. And the left is blasting Vice President Pence for walking out of the Colts game after players protested the anthem.
This is a Fox News alert. People are picking up the pieces after Hurricane Nate landed in the south as a Category 1 hurricane.
It's now a tropical depression, and folks down south are not out of the woods yet.
Look at that video on the right.
I know it.
Ellison Barber joins us live from Biloxi, Mississippi, where the storm made landfall for a second time. Ellison, we're looking at that video of that casino. Gosh, feet of water.
Yeah, we're not far from that. And right now you can see it's starting to rain, which never makes a cleanup process easy. This morning in Alabama, about 7,000 people are waking up without power. Mississippi Power says they restored power for all of their customers around 9 o'clock last night. Hurricane Nate is being blamed for 20 deaths in Central America. In the U.S., Nate has mostly caused power outage and minimal damage. I want to show you guys some of that damage right here on the beach. You can see there's a sailboat over here. This sailboat has been stuck on the beach since Sunday morning. It's one of the bigger items, bigger pieces of debris that people are going to need to try and clean up in the coming days. If you walk about half a mile down the beach this way, there are those casinos, a number of casinos in this direction. We know at least 3 casinos experienced flooding. For many of them, that flooding took place in the parking deck. Cars were damaged or destroyed. And then, of course, there's that video, Ansley, that you referred to at the Golden Nugget. The lobby there, which normally might be filled with gamblers, was replaced with water and storm surge. The last hurricane actually to hit the state of Mississippi was Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Officials here talked a lot about that yesterday. Take a listen.
We did not dodge a bullet in Mississippi.
we got hit head-on at night by a Category 1 storm. If that same storm, if Nate would have hit us 15 years ago, the damage would have been much more extensive.
That's the thing officials kept reiterating. They kept saying that the work they did after Hurricane Katrina destroyed this area is what made the damage this weekend a whole lot less. They kept saying maybe some people are referring to New Orleans as a place that dodged a bullet, but they don't feel like they did here. They feel like they took a hit, they took a hard hit, and they survived it and did well because they put in so much work after 2005 and Hurricane Katrina. Steve, Brian, Ansley.
Indeed. All right, Elson Barber live in Biloxi. I've been to that casino.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
They did a hell of a job after Katrina, though. I mean, they did. They were so efficient in rebuilding. Great governor.
Yeah.
Ellie Barber led the charge.
Well, the thing about this particular storm is it was going really fast. In fact, so fast, it's now Adam Klotz, who joins us with the weather. It's now up in the Northeast.
Yeah, it's going to be completely out of the country before the day's over. That's how quickly this storm was moving. Actually, the fastest hurricane moving through the Gulf of Mexico we've ever seen make landfall. There it is, currently moving at 60 miles an hour, really spreading out as it moves. But we're beginning to see showers through Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, up towards New York, if not now, at least before too long, as this system continues to move very quickly now up the East Coast. This is our future radar. You can pay attention to the timestamp in the corner as I continue to make this move along. Some showers already in Washington, D.C. The heaviest rain in Philadelphia and New York by early this afternoon. I continue to let this thing move. And you're talking about Boston, Portland, Maine. By tonight and by the overnight hours, we are already completely clearing off. And you're looking at clearer skies on the backside of this already. Guys, this is just such a fast mover. Currently moving at 60 miles an hour. It's going to be gone before we know it.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
All right, Adam,
Thanks,
thank you very much.
Vice President Mike Pence taking a stand, walking out of yesterday's Colts game in Indianapolis after observing nearly 24 San Francisco 49ers kneeling during the anthem. In a tweet, the vice president explained, "I left today's Colts game because POTUS and I will not dignify any event that disrespects our soldiers, our flag, or our national anthem." Mark Lauder is the vice president's former press secretary, and he joins us now to react. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. Have you talked to the vice president? Do you know exactly why he did this?
I haven't had a chance to speak to him yet. They're off to California, but this is not surprising. I mean, the president stands for the national anthem. He stands with the American people, and it's the height of hypocrisy for liberal Democrats to celebrate players who disrespect the flag, disrespect the national anthem, and those who defend it, and then accuse the vice president for engaging in his same rights of doing a political stunt.
Right. What I find interesting is that this is a historic day in Indianapolis because they retired Peyton Manning's number. They brought back a lot of his great players, Edgerrin James and Reggie Wayne and others, and they had a whole ceremony before. That's why I believe the vice president would want to be there. After all, he was governor during his heyday and congressman.
Oh, absolutely. This was on the vice president's calendar for many weeks. Even before I left the administration, we knew that this was a date that we had marked on our calendar that the vice president was going to attend. He actually added going to Las Vegas to honor those who brave Americans and first responders who had saved people during the massacre there the day before on Saturdays, which kind of adjusted the schedule. But this had long been a day on the vice president's calendar he was looking forward to.
Adam Schiff, who is a Democrat from California, said yesterday, you know, how much taxpayer money was wasted on this PR stunt. What's your message for the congressman from California?
Well, I don't take a lot of fiscal responsibility lectures from a Democrat from California when you look at the budget of their state and you look at what the national debt, nearly doubled under President Obama. But this was something that was long planned by the vice president. He had planned to attend this. He was doing everything he possibly could. And really, that's just nothing but trying to change the story from the fact that you still had 20 NFL players who were taking a knee during the national anthem, while the NFL watches its popularity plummet, even among men. They're now negative. They're underwater in popularity with men 35 to 54. This is just a chance to distract it from the real story. The fact is, if they wouldn't have taken a knee, the vice president would have been there watching the first half of that game and the Peyton Manning tribute at halftime.
Mark, Eric Reed is a 49ers safety. Listen to what he had to say about it.
Last time he's been to a Colts game was 3 years ago. So this looks like a PR stunt to me. He knew our team has had the most players protest. He knew that we were probably going to do it again.
Keep in mind these comments, this negativity, these naysayers. all right after we have first responders running into bullets to save other Americans.
Yeah,
They don't want to stand for the national anthem.
Yeah, it's not surprising. Obviously, the vice president was in Las Vegas on Saturday at the service there honoring those brave people. But I can tell you the vice president went to Colts games last year. I went with him during the campaign. And while the San Francisco 49er players may not know it, he actually was at the Super Bowl last year taking wounded veterans who had given, who had been injured in service of our country. He took them to the Super Bowl last year. The 49ers wouldn't know about that. But that tells you, I mean, the vice president understands about the patriotism. He understands. He's also a lover. He loves the game of football. It's unfortunate this is where the game is going.
Right. Jerry Jones and Stephen Ross, two owners who said, my guys have to stand from now on. The president tweeted out right after, I asked the VP to leave the stadium if any players kneel, disrespecting our country. I'm proud of him. And Second Lady Karen. So we'll see where this goes because there's been a lot of blowback on this.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great to see you.
And so far, the NBA has a rule you shouldn't, but I expect them to try something as their regular season gets started. And so far, the MLB playoffs, everyone's standing.
Don't say that. We don't need any more of it. Please.
What? You really think people
don't listen to Brian if you play in the NBA?
No, there's rumors they're going to be doing something.
I hope you don't.
I wonder, though, if this is going to be the new standard. If somebody from the administration is in attendance, if players take a knee, if they're going to, okay, you know what, we're going to have to leave. I wonder if going forward that's going to be the case.
Yeah,
Don't
it should
know.
be.
Stay tuned. All right, meanwhile, it's 19 minutes before the top of the hour. Time for some headlines.
I saw it started in the NHL, too.
It did?
That's
I
what
did not see that.
I saw that online yesterday.
But the Penguins will be coming to the White House this week.
Yep. We'll keep you posted on that, that's for sure. But in the meantime, let's get you caught up on your news of the morning. Do you remember this promise that President Trump made to coal country?
You're going to see what happens. You're going to see. I get elected. You're going to see what happens. It's going to happen fast. And you're going to be back to better than ever before.
Well, he's about to deliver on it today. The administration set to make a big announcement on climate policy. The EPA planning to scrap former President Obama's Clean Power Plan. The agency declaring that the rule meant to curb greenhouse gas emissions exceeds federal law by setting emission standards that power plants could not reasonably meet. Convicted leaker Chelsea Manning claims she didn't spill any government secrets, only history. Manning speaking at the New Yorker Festival saying, quote, "These aren't intelligence documents. It's historical data. There's nothing sensitive in there. There's no troop movements. It was a historical record of everything that had happened in Iraq and Afghanistan." Manning spent 7 years in military prison for disclosing classified government information to WikiLeaks. President Obama commuted her sentence. Well, this video is absolutely insane. An irate man clings to a moving school bus after he says a bottle was thrown at his car. The bus driver refusing to stop.
Get off the bus. Get off the bus.
Jeez, an off-duty officer nearby quickly stepped in to help. The man was arrested. The bus, get this, was packed with middle school-aged kids. That must have been absolutely terrifying.
Why didn't the bus driver stop immediately?
I don't know.
There's a guy on my bus.
Can you imagine being the kid in the bus? Like watching this go down?
No, but the driver just kept going.
I know.
There's a guy on the hood of the car.
He's looking out the windshield. He's not looking at the grill.
All right, thank you, Jillian. I'm glad the guy's okay. All right, we have a Fox News alert. Several massive wildfires are burning out of control right now, and homeowners are using buckets of water, literally, to stop the flames at their doorsteps, including the brother of our own Adam Housley. We're going to speak to him next.
That's right. And a big program this morning. Counselor to the President Kellyanne Conway is going to be joining us. Also, General Jack Keane and Dana Loesch, as you can see right there. Plus, David Webb. Fox and Friends for a Columbus Day continues in a couple of minutes live from New York.